Hi everyone, it's Alyssa and this is Always Cinema Chic, the place that encourages you to stay in, get dressed up, and watch a movie. So today I'm going to be reviewing The Dark Tower, which stars Idris Elba, Matthew McConaughey, and Tom Taylor, and it's directed by Nicolaj Arcel. And this movie I found was such a disappointment. I really wanted to like it. I know it didn't get the best reviews, but I went into this thinking that this is probably at least going to be entertaining because it has a lot of actors that I like in it, but they definitely went wrong in many places, which I will go over in a few seconds. So I've seen 3 Stephen King adaptations in the past month and a half. So I saw It, Gerald's Game, and this film was by far the worst of all of the adaptations. I don't read Stephen King, but I can't imagine that his series of novels really felt like this movie. It's much too fast-paced. You don't really get into any kind of characterization, and if I know anything about Stephen King, I know that he does spend a lot of time on his novels, really giving you a lot of background with the characters, and you don't get any of that here, and it's very disappointing. So there were a few things that I found interesting. I think the basic premise of the film was something that I wanted to see. So the idea of this dark tower in the center of the universe that prevents evil and demons from coming in and hurting our earth, that's a really interesting premise, and it could be a great sci-fi fantasy western. There's just a lot of mistakes within it. But what I really did enjoy about the film was Roland, aka the gunslinger, who is played by Idris Elba. I found the character really mysterious. I definitely did want more background with him, but he was really cool. So him just kind of putting in the bullets very quickly with his gun, and his ability to know where every object and every person is in every scenario. He has these real superhuman type qualities, and I loved that character. I wanted more of that character in the movie, and I'm pretty sure that has everything to do with Idris Elba and nothing to do with the writing in the film. So the story starts out with Jake, who's played by Tom Taylor, who has these horrible nightmares of creatures whose skin is attached to their faces. His mom is convinced that her son has some deep-rooted issues from his father's death, and the stepfather seems to just want the kid out of the house. Yet he's certain that his visions are real, and of course they are. McConaughey plays the man in black, who's a dark sorcerer, and he wants to take down the dark tower so that all of this evil can come into Earth and basically kill everyone. And as it just so happens, he actually is responsible for Roland's father's death. So Roland really wants to stop at nothing to seek revenge on his father. And so you do have this kind of great Western setup of the hero who's trying to avenge the death of someone he loves, which sounds really cool. But what's cool on paper is not always cool in reality. And one of the missteps here is definitely the character Jake. Tom Taylor is okay in this movie. I just saw it not so long ago, and I cared about every last one of those kids. Their performances were outstanding, but I couldn't care about this one kid in the movie. I didn't feel like he had a lot of depth in his performance, and I know a lot of that has to do with the writing and the directing. Especially when you're so young, you're gonna do whatever the director says, and if you aren't really given lines that give your backstory, then you're not going to give that added depth that, a veteran actor like Idris Elba might add into the story. So, I can't blame him, but I found the character pretty bland. But even worse than that is the villain. Now, I went into it thinking, all right, even if this movie is bad, at least I have Matthew McConaughey and Idris Elba, and they're gonna give knockout performances. And honestly, it was only half right in my assumption. He's not that great in this. Matthew McConaughey is such a charming actor, and I thought he would make an even more charming villain. I could just see kind of the devilish smile, but he was really boring, which is probably just about the worst thing that you can say for a villain in a movie like this, he was trying to do this strange accent that I couldn't quite put my finger on, and at the same time I wanted him to be this sort of like all-consuming evil, and I just never got that from him throughout the course of the entire movie. And the cinematography was very strange in the sense that there were a lot of boring medium shots in the film, but sometimes there would be these Dutch angle shots that would look really dated and didn't make a lot of sense. Now, the movie was very gritty looking. The scenes in New York City looked downright dirty, but this gritty color palette made the film overly dark. I watched the movie on Blu-ray in the dark, and yet I still felt like I couldn't actually see what was going on because everything was so dimly lit. There's a scene where this creature just attacks in the middle of the night, and I honestly had a really difficult time figuring out what the creature looked like because he just sort of blended right into the darkness. And part of me started thinking, is this because of the CGI being so bad that they were trying to mask it in some way? But on the one hand, I know this movie cost $60 million, and that's a lot of money, but it's actually not a lot compared to $100 million, $150 million for a lot of sci-fi action movies. So I don't always expect that the CGI is going to be perfect. I actually understand the constrictions of a budget, but at the same time, you better develop the story and make me love the characters to make up for, you know, this bad lighting and the fact that the CGI doesn't look that great throughout the movie, and it's just so underdeveloped. I wanted more. I wanted to know more about the gunslinger. I wanted to know more about the man in black. I wanted to know more about Jake. There's a scene with his mom, and you can see there's like all these bottles of alcohol in the back. She's always drinking, but you never really get into the backstory with his family and what it was like, and what it was like for him having his father die. There's nothing. You just get little hints now and then, but it just felt like they were trying to keep the movie going so quickly. And even with the gunslinger, what an interesting character, and you don't get any backstory. You'll get like a line here or there, so it will say, you know, his gun is forged from Excalibur, and that's it. You don't get anything more. And I felt like this kind of movie would have really worked well with an origin story where we find out more about the past of the gunslinger or the man in black, and you have that kind of story, or something with Jake, but you go right into it. And I feel like a film that's trying to build a universe needs to take the time to actually build that universe. And they're so interested in getting straight into the plot that I don't really understand what this world is exactly, especially having not read the book. I felt like they should have taken the time for those people who haven't read the novels to kind of show this is the world that we are introducing here. But if there is one bright spot in the film, it definitely is Idris Elba, who just kind of walks right in, and you can feel like you understand his character completely. He plays that sort of Western archetype who's very quiet to a T. He's perfect. He totally understands this character. Plus, the scenes, especially at the end, when we get to see him use his gun, were just really, really cool. So seeing the quickness with which he puts in the bullets and his perfect accuracy was really entertaining to watch. I will go so far to say that I think Elba is one of the most underutilized actors in Hollywood today. He is absolutely brilliant. He can do anything. He's charming, he's funny, he's serious, he can do any accent, but yet he's always giving characters that are just underdeveloped or movies that don't really live up to their full potential. And I just miss seeing him in TV shows like Luther and The Wire, where you can just see the energy and the life from him. I love him in those shows. And you know, he hasn't been in a lot of movies lately that I go, wow, that is the Idris Elba that I know and love, and I really want to see that. But at the end of the day, the failure of this movie really falls on the shoulders of the director. So I feel like Arcel was just trying to keep the story going much too quickly. It's only an hour and 35 minutes. It's very plot heavy, but it doesn't give you any background or context to the plot. You're just kind of moving forward with the plot the entire film. And it really could have been a bit more humorous. It could have stood to have some levity. It's a very dark and heavy movie throughout, and that might be what the books are like, and that's fine. But even something like Batman the Dark Knight, it has moments of humor and a bit of lightness in there, and this, it was like you could just cut the heaviness with a knife, and it didn't make the film fun. There were a couple of moments where Roland comes to Earth for the first time, and he's like eating a hot dog, or little moments that show how out of place this character is, and that was cute, and I thought it could have used more of this type of humor throughout. But it was just very dark and heavy. And I looked up this director's filmography, and he did A Royal Affair, which was a period piece, and it was obviously about an affair, and it was a really good movie, and I thought it was well made, and it's gorgeous. The cinematography is beautiful, the costumes are great, but this is just so different of a story. It's this Western sci-fi fantasy, and I just felt like this wasn't within his wheelhouse. And Arcel is also attached to the upcoming TV show, so I really hope that he learns from some of these mistakes, and that he is given the time to flesh out these characters and these scenarios and really build people that we would care about as an audience. I don't care if it's an overly dark TV show, I just want to care about the characters. So now for the grades. In terms of film and artistry, I would give The Dark Tower a C-. The story is very much underdeveloped. It's way too fast at 1 hour and 35 minutes, and it's just oddly shot. It's very quick cuts. There's no kind of backstory of any of the characters, and the movie is very dark, almost so dark in terms of like a color palette that I couldn't quite see everything that was going on in the movie. And in terms of watchability, which is how much I enjoy it, I would give this a C. So there were at least some action scenes where they were very entertaining and well done, and Idris Elba was, just so much fun to look at with like the guns, and it was some very good action sequences, and his performance was definitely engaging. And for those few things, maybe it's not the worst thing to watch on a Monday night when you don't have really anything else to do. But other than that, I'm sure that you can find something else. I just said in the beginning that I saw Gerald's Game by Stephen King. That's on Netflix. I thought that was a better film than this, even though it's wildly different. But if you like Stephen King, I think that's a better recommendation for an adaptation for him. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have seen the film and want to leave a comment, please do like and subscribe. And remember, it is always in fashion to stay in, get dressed up, and make it a cinema chic night. Bye everyone.